Before we get started, I feel like I should tell you that I'm just wearing pajama shorts with this outfit. Hello, and welcome to the Yet Another Yarn podcast, or as I'm probably going to start calling it, the YAYCast. I'm Gina. I live just outside Chicago, Illinois with my husband Tony, our two kids Zoe and Pete, and our enormous golden doodle Caesar. A few things that you should know about me before we get started. My husband and I are professional wedding photographers and have been for about the last 8 years. So if you hear me at any point during a podcast refer to having a shoot or going shooting, it is of the camera variety and not of the other sort. I am a huge sci-fi nerd. I love all things science fiction. I love comic book movies. I don't really like comic books. I know that's ironic. I love Harry Potter. I love basically any show that Netflix comes out with. I am a huge media consumer, which is probably a bad thing. But if you at any point would like to nerd out about some Star Wars or Game of Thrones, you should absolutely send me a message because I would love to talk to you about it. I am a huge collector of ironic, witty, and or inappropriate coffee mugs. This one was given to me by my brother-in-law for Christmas a few years ago. It reads Espresso Patronum, which is incredibly relevant for me as I love coffee and Harry Potter. So you'll probably see me with a brand new mug, hopefully, every week. Coffee mugs make me happy, and coffee especially makes me happy. So I thought I would give you guys a little bit of background about me. I have been a crafter since before I can remember. I come from a very crafty family. My grandmother taught me how to crochet probably when I was about 5 or 6 years old. So it's always something that I've done throughout my entire life, and I've always really enjoyed it. But there have been times where it kind of falls to the wayside, and I don't really do it as often as I wanted to. And I really got back into crafting hardcore probably about a little over 4 years ago when I was pregnant with my daughter. My nesting kind of manifested itself as crafting. So instead of cleaning, all I did was make things. I made hats and little toys for her, and it just kind of went off the deep end. Ironically, even though I was a crocheter first and I really love the act of crocheting, I'm not a huge fan of the way that crocheting looks, especially in terms of like garments. There's just always something about it that just looks a little too handmade for my taste personally. So I never really ventured out past making hats and scarves or little amigurumi dolls, things like that. Probably 5 or 6 years ago, I first learned to knit. My sister is an amazing knitter, and she was over one day she actually spent the weekend at our house and taught me how to knit. And it terrified me because as a crocheter, I'm so used to being able to say, I made a mistake, and now all I have to do is just rip back 3 rows and start from where I made the mistake and keep going. And when I realized as a knitter that fixing mistakes can be a lot more complicated than that, I was like, no thank you. This is a lot of pressure. I don't want to be stressed out while I'm crafting. And then recently, I was visiting my sister who now lives in Delaware. We went to a local yarn store by her called the Yarn Maven in Smyrna. If anybody out there watching is from Delaware, I recommend you check it out. I thought it was going to Delaware to visit family. We've got 2 young kids, and I knew at the time I had been getting back into crafting, and I was like, I kind of feel like my luck, if I bring a project with me, I'm just not going to have any time to work on it. And then I'm going to be frustrated, and it's just going to be an extra bag that I've got to carry with me. And I was like, it's not worth the hassle. I'm not going to worry about it. And of course we get there, my kids willingly go to every family member they see, which was kind of new. So I had all this free time with my hands, and I was like, I don't know what to do. I'm not used to just sitting still. So we went to this yarn store and I found a gorgeous skein of Lorna Lace's yarn, which ironically Lorna Lace's is based in Chicago, and at the time I did not know that, but there you go, which is kind of fun. I decided then and there that I was going to knit something with this yarn because it's just so cute and pretty. At this store there was a bunch of shawls, and I don't consider myself a shawl person or scarf person. I'm actually really bad at accessorizing. I'm a very plain jeans and t-shirt. I think I own like 3 necklaces. I've got a lot of family that gives me jewelry, and I think that they're trying to like encourage me to do stuff. Guys, I'm gonna be honest, it's kind of a lost cause. I don't think I'm really ever gonna wear jewelry. So I was like, I'm gonna make a shawl just because it looks like a fun project, and if I don't wear it, maybe I'll give it to somebody. So I went on Ravelry and I found this gorgeous shawl pattern by Romi Hill. It's called the Artesian shawl, and I gravitated towards it because while it was like pretty and had all these little lacy bits, it also looked really approachable, and since I am not a very accomplished knitter, I've needed something to kind of like wet my feet with. Hopefully you can see some of the lacy bits. It's just like a very open lace with some garter stitch in between. So I started the pattern, and I really loved this pattern, mainly because I suck at counting, which I know as a knitter is a really huge failing. And there were so many times where I lost my stitch count, where I definitely screwed up multiple times. And I just kind of kept going because at the time, and at the time was like 4 weeks ago, guys, I just kind of wanted to keep my hands busy, and I wasn't overly concerned with the final project. I figured if I screwed up so horribly, then I would just frog it and start again. But honestly, when I finished it, I was shocked. I know there's probably like 5 or 6 major mistakes in this, guys, and you really can't tell. So kudos to Romi for designing a really awesome pattern that is super forgiving. I would recommend it highly to anybody who's kind of on the fence about trying a larger project like a shawl, but maybe isn't as comfortable with doing something that involved. So that's a bit of a brief history of the last couple weeks of how I got back into crafting. When I went to go visit my sister in mid-June, I just kind of dove back in head first. She's also a huge crafter. Also, you should follow her on Instagram if you don't already. Her handle is @KaylaCrafts, and I'll put that information down below because she's amazing. Anyway, so my sister and I kind of like went back whole hog, or she got me back into whole hog crafting, and it's kind of taken over my life at the moment. I've realized that I really need an outlet over the course of the day to focus on one specific thing, because when I'm working, and we work at home, so I'm working and parenting at the same time and trying to make sure my house is clean and dinner's cooked. I also spend a lot of time in front of screens, and screen burnout is like legitimately a thing. It's tough. So I wanted something that at the end of the day I could kind of use my hands and feel like I'm productive, but also that would help me relax. Obviously crafting is it. I think that's really why a lot of us get into crafting, is it's just a very soothing and calming and relaxing experience. So my goals for this podcast are probably very similar to everybody else's podcast goals. I don't really have anything specific in mind other than just kind of talking about my projects in my life, or things that I find that are cool and interesting, and I hope that other people might find cool and interesting too. I don't know where this is going to end up. I don't know where it's going to take me. So hopefully if you stick with me, we'll kind of stumble into something fun and unique together. See, I had said all this great stuff and it wasn't even recording. So, you know that moment where you're like, I have no idea what I just said. There. And it was really good, guys. But it's gone now. It's gone. It's gone in the nether, and I don't know where it went. Sorry. part of the podcast where I get to share with you lots of super cool, fun works in progress. And before we get started, you should know up front that I'm a very ADD knitter. Like, I need to have like no less than 5 projects going on at once. And yet, being an ADD knitter, I'm very monogamous when I am knitting. So I will typically work on one project for like a week straight, and then I will burn out on it and I will set it down and not look at it for weeks, sometimes months, occasionally years. So that being said, all the fun things I have to share, the first thing that I want to share with you guys is participating in the Game of Thrones Beyond the Wall, I think is the official title, Mystery Knit Along, that I believe is being hosted officially by Jimmy Bean's Wool, but Rachel Roden designed the pattern. It's a shawl. The original shawl is actually meant to be made with a colorway by Lorna's Laces that was dyed specifically to kind of embody this idea of Beyond the Wall. But I'll be honest, I just worked with Lorna Laces yarn and I loved it, but I wanted to try something a little bit new and different, and my sister had turned me on previously to Taylor's yarn at Fiber for the People, and I've become obsessively stalking her on Instagram, and I just really loved all of her colors. And I have this thing with yarn where I have a hard time buying yarn without a project in mind for it. I'm not good at stashing. I'm not good at just buying things because they're pretty. Like, I need to know that there's a specific thing that I'm working towards. I don't just go and just grab things willy-nilly. Oh, I should really do that. I saw she'd posted on her Instagram feed for one of her shop updates this colorway. This is called Gata Lava Moana Loa, and it's her twisty singles base, which I'm gonna be honest, I freaking love. I love working with it. I love the way it feels when I'm knitting with it. I'm slightly obsessed with these single ply yarns recently. I kind of stumbled across them by accident because I was still kind of learning about fiber and different projects and what to use for different things. Ironically, ended up buying a bunch of single ply yarn, not realizing that was what I was getting, and now I'm obsessed with it. I saw it on Taylor's Instagram and I just like fell in love with it, mainly because I thought it was like the perfect colorway to embody House Targaryen, and I'm a huge Daenerys fan because aren't we all, because badass ladies rock. This is the perfect yarn that I want to use for a Game of Thrones themed knit along. I think it's great. And then the first clue was released alongside the first episode. I think it aired July 16th. The very first thing in the description is that how the shawl is inspired by I think the House Stark shield or the crest or something to that effect. And I was like, oh man. And then if you're a Game of Thrones fan, it hit me why mixing Targaryen colors with a Stark crest might be incredibly relevant for this season. And so I said I'm going for it because I love this yarn. So without further ado, by the way, if you are knitting along with the Mystery Knit Along and you have not finished Clue 2 yet, and you want it to be a surprise, spoilers, so please fast forward, and I'll let you know when this little segment ends, what time to fast forward to. But otherwise, here's what I have so far. There we go. I am a few rows, like maybe 3 or 4 rows away from finishing Clue 2, which are just, I think, like really just increased rows. I don't think there's any, there might be an extra bobble or something on one of those rows, but I'm almost finished. So this is pretty much what Clue 2 looks like at the end. In her pattern notes, Rachel, I guess I should be holding it this way, shouldn't I? Haha. Woo! There you go. In her pattern notes, Rachel talks about how these little baubles, hopefully you can see that, and that's in focus, but these little baubles right here are reminiscent of the rivets on the shield. And I'll be honest, I don't know that I'm a bauble fan, but since it's my first knit along, my very first mystery knit along, I wanted to make sure that I was just following the pattern as is. I know people are doing beads or leaving like little keyholes or something, but I was like, I don't know, I just want to see how this plays out. Full disclosure, I royally screwed up right there, and I completely missed 2 bobbles, and I didn't even notice for like 4 rows, like an embarrassingly long time. Faced with the decision of ripping back 4 rows, which was like, let's be honest, that's never gonna happen, I decided to make the bobbles separately, and I just sewed them on. I think that works. I think once those ends are weaved in, you'll never be able to tell, and hopefully those bobbles don't ever fall off. We'll find out. I'll let you know in the end how things go. And I just love this Twisty Singles yarn. It's just like, it's so springy and stretchy, and it's just, it's really fun to work with. So that's shawl number 1. Also, spoilers ahead, if you are a friend or family member of mine that we commonly exchange Christmas presents or birthday presents, or you have a baby coming, you should also skip this section unless you want spoilers for your Christmas presents. So my next project that I currently have on the needles is, this is the beginning of Pure Joy Shawl from Locatelli. If I had to pick a knitwear designer that I feel like is my spirit animal, I think it would be Hohi. Anyway, I saw this and I immediately gravitated towards it. I don't think the person that will be receiving this shawl will ever watch this podcast because it's a little bit of a distant, not quite relation, but it is somebody who has been incredibly generous to us, especially in terms of our kids, and she is just this lovely, lovely woman who has amazing taste. One of those people that's like kind of hard to shop for because everything they own is like super nice or super specific, and she's super fashionable. And so when I saw this shawl design, and I just kind of loved how like clean and simple it was, I was like, I feel like she would really just love the way that this looks. So I am using Madeline Tosh, who I'm secretly obsessed with. Aren't we all? Isn't everybody obsessed with Madeline Tosh? If you're not obsessed with Madeline Tosh, are you a real person? So I've got 2 colors here. Hopefully you can see those. This is the Toshmo Light. This color right here is Stucco. This one is Wet Clay. This Wet Clay is stunning. It's like soft pinks and purples and like just a hint of gray. Makes my heart happy. And this is literally the most beautiful shade of blush pink that I think I've ever seen in my entire life. I don't think this shade of blush pink even exists in nature because it's so pretty. But the Toshmo Light, it's got 20% mohair in it. It does make working with it a little tricky because I'm like constantly like getting mohair all over me, but it's so soft and squishy. It just feels like, oh, I love it. I really like this pattern. It is incredibly simple. I will probably make like, I'll probably make like 10 more of these shawls in different colorway combinations because it knits up really fast, and it's something that I can do like a row or 2 at a time and not feel like I'm losing my place. And it's also just a really easy mindless knit that you can do without the pattern. Like, it's really just a matter of like how many times you repeat the garter stitch rows, but it's awesome. It's a really easy it's like an easy on the go pattern, and I love it. And I'm probably gonna end up keeping this for myself. I am a little worried because she mentions in the pattern that whichever color you use for colorway A needs like almost exactly like 420 or 430 yards, which is literally like, I think this might be, this is 420 yards exactly. So I'm definitely going to be playing a very serious and intense game of yarn chicken at the end of this shawl. I might fudge it and just like maybe skip a row instead of having to buy like an entire other skein of yarn for like literally 10 yards. We'll see how that pans out. I'm a little nervous. Next up, in my whips, I'm making yet another shawl, which is ironic. I know I said when I started making this shawl that I was not sure if I was a shawl person, and I'm still not sure if I am a shawl person. I do love wearing this one. This will be a gift, but it probably won't be a gift for a very long time because the idea that I have on who and why to gift it isn't happening anytime particularly soon. So I have plenty of time to finish this shawl. This is the beginning of a Hazy Daze shawl by Boo Knits. And I literally just recently finished the increase rows. So I'm like, I maybe like 5 or 6 rows into the lacy bit. So I haven't really gotten very far. You can't really, it's not lacy yet. I've never knit lace before. As we've covered earlier, I'm really just getting into knitting officially. I'm terrified of lace knitting, and I've learned that I can't do it in the car, so that's unfortunate because we do a lot of driving and we sit in a lot of traffic. I'm excited to see where it goes. I started this pattern as like a mini knit along with a friend of mine, even though I don't think she's started hers yet. Dre, get on this because it takes a while to get to the fun part. This is, I think it's Mela Burrito. I think it's just their lace weight yarn. I know the colorway is Pearl. I can probably name you everybody's gray colorways off the top of my head because I am obsessed with gray in all shades and variations and tones. This next project I'm really excited about. I cast it on last night when I probably should have been working on other things. But I just finished my very first sweater, which I'm going to share with you guys because I literally just finished it a couple days ago and I'm still kind of riding that finished object high. So even though I'm just now recording my first episode, you guys are going to see it and I'm going to act like it's been something that you've known about all along, right? But this is the start of a Boxy Chevrons sweater by Susanne Sommer. You know, if Locatelli isn't my design spirit animal, then Susanne Sommer definitely is. Can I have 2? I'm gonna have 2. I have two spirit animals, 2 design spirit animals. Especially excited for this because, like everyone, I have been bit by the yarn dyeing bug and decided to try my hand at dyeing yarn. Mainly because my sister's really gotten into it recently and she's like super good. And I was like, she can do it, I can totally do it. So I ordered everything that I needed, and the first time I dyed something, I dyed it black, which is, still not sure how that happened because I didn't use black. That's still a mystery. And then the second time I dyed something, it was fine. Let's just say those things will never see the light of day. They're not something to brag about. Anyway, about the 5th or 6th time I attempted to dye something, I got something I really liked. And this first one, the pretty little cake. It's like this white with black speckles because I decided maybe I should just try something really easy. And I'm calling it Rorschach because when I speckled all the black in the pan, it just kind of looked like an ink blot test, like a Rorschach test. I love it because it's monochromatic and it's got speckles of black and gray in it, which are my favorite things to wear. And this is one of my favorite yarns that I've dyed that's actually worked out. I'm calling this one Perfect Storm because it's just this lovely like medium to dark gray, and it's got like little hints of purple and blue and even like a couple hints of like a brighter aqua. Just kind of peek through like a summer storm, which is my favorite thing in the world because it's gray. Storms are gray. Also, this yarn is gray, and I love gray things. I love all the gray things. I looked through my pattern queue. I was terrified. I was actually terrified to cake these up and actually use them, mainly because I was convinced that like even though they were super pretty as skeins, that once I started using them, I'd notice like this epic flaw and I'd be like, well, I guess I really am not any good at this at all. I swatched up I swatched up Rorschach, and I just like really love how those are just little black speckles throughout the yarn. So anyway, I went through my pattern queue, and I think like the second thing I ever favorited on Ravelry was the Boxy Chevron sweater. And so I was looking through my pattern queue, and I saw it, and it's basically, the original sweater is almost exactly these colors. It's like a dark gray. Her dark gray is like much darker than this probably, but dark gray chevrons on the sleeves, and then this like speckled black and white yarn for the rest of the body. And so I was like, well, perfect. That's like fate. I guess it's time to attempt a sweater for myself, which is something that I've always said that I'm going to do, and I always chicken out. The one gigantic problematic part in this plan is I now have to dye 3 more skeins of this Rorschach. It's like a lot of pressure, and I wrote everything down, and I took lots of photos in case I ever wanted to attempt to repeat it. But like, I'm going to be honest, the thought of trying to repeat it is giving me a lot of anxiety. Because I'm convinced it's not going to happen again. Like I'm a one strike dyer. I guess if it doesn't work out, I can just fade it, right? That's what we do now. We fade things. Hashtag fade all the things. Is that a hashtag? It should totally be a hashtag. That's not a hashtag. Let's start it. Hashtag fade all the things, guys. This is my humble beginnings of my Boxy Chevron sweater. I'm calling this my if I make it to Rhinebeck sweater. There's a slight, minimal, very minute possibility that I can make it to Rhinebeck. So my family on the East Coast, I actually went to school in Poughkeepsie, which is like 20 minutes away from Rhinebeck, and like I spent so many Saturdays and Sundays in Rhinebeck, and like I never knew that this was a thing. I love Rhinebeck. It's like, it actually has a very special place in my heart because it's like the world's most adorable town. So I'd really love to get back there, and I can like double up because I've got a lot of friends that live in New York, and I'd love to see them, and my sister really wants to go, so I'm thinking about it. We have a big trip coming up in January, so we'll see if I can finagle my way to Rhinebeck. My goal is to have this finished by when Rhinebeck would be, just in case I make it there. And if not, I'll wear it here in my house while everyone else is at Rhinebeck. Now, for my finished object segment, which is an object you haven't seen before, but trust me when I tell you, I finished it this week. So it's kind of a big deal. I made a sweater. I made a sweater, guys, that looks like an actual sweater. And it's proportional. And look, the sleeves are the same size. Like, I'm gonna be honest, I didn't think that was gonna happen. You might recognize the pattern, even though it's not faded, but it is a pint sized sew faded sweater. I found this yarn from Little Bean, and actually on Instagram she's Little Bean Crochet. I think on Etsy it's just Little Bean yarn, Little Bean something. I'll put all that info down below. I found her through my sister, which is how I find all things, and I fell in love with this yarn. She names yarn after nerdy things, so it's like she's my secret new best friend. She doesn't know that yet. And this is, I should really recake this, guys. This is her Luna colorway. That is the world's most perfect colorway. It is just this soft, creamy white with speckles of like every color in the rainbow, and it is Luna. It is everything that is Luna Lovegood, and God, it just made me so happy. And I saw it, and I knew I wanted to use it to make something for my daughter. My sister Kayla sent me a link to the sew faded sweater, which at the time I did not realize was such a big thing. And now I know it's a thing, and I loved the pattern, but I also knew that I didn't want to fade the sweater because I'm so in love with the colorway, and I just felt like it should really stand on its own. So this is my pint-sized sew faded sweater without the fade, which I think still looks super awesome and adorable and epic. This is my first sweater I've ever made. And I feel like I did a fairly good job. I did use I alternated 2 skeins as I went. So on the back, there's probably a better way to do this, but I do feel like there is kind of an obvious off-centered seam that runs down the back. I'm not super concerned with it this time, mainly because my daughter is 3.5, and let's be honest, it is the end of July. By the time you see this, it will probably be the first week of August, and it probably won't be sweater weather here in Chicago until like October. And this fits her perfectly like right now. So it's going to be my luck that by the time it's cold enough for her to wear a sweater, or even cool enough for her to wear a sweater, it's going to be like a mid-drift sweater on her. I made the 3/4 length sleeve specifically for the reason that I knew she'd outgrow it by like full on winter time. And now I'm just hoping that she gets to wear it like at all. Most likely I'm just going to put her in it and do like a little mini photo shoot, and then whatever, if she grows out of it, she grows out of it. I'm also paranoid about her wearing it because I love it so much, and this child gets like everything on her and stains everything, so like it's probably gonna last like 5 seconds. I now have like almost 1 full skein of this yarn left since I alternated 2 skeins. I needed just over 1 to do a size 4 for her, and now I don't know what to do with the rest of it. If anyone has any ideas of what I can do with this gorgeous, gorgeous yarn, send me a link to some patterns. I thought about maybe making her like a coordinated hat or other accessory, but then I'm kind of like, maybe I just want it for myself. I don't know. All pattern suggestions are welcome. So I have a problem with yarn. Don't we all have problems with yarn? Yarn problems? Hashtag yarn problems. I like to hashtag things. As I mentioned earlier, I love Fiber for the People. I think she's like my new favorite indie dyer. My indie dyer of the moment. Just lovely colorways she comes up with. They're really, really pretty. I've gotten 2 colorways from her so far. I got this one, which I showed you earlier, that I'm using for my Game of Thrones mystery knit along. This is the Gotta Lava Moana Loa, which is just super pretty. It's like reds and peaches and orange and black speckles, and is so appropriately named. It really just, it looks like a lava flow. Again, another reason why I was like, dragons. It's perfect. I love it. And then at her most recent, this was her Twisty Singles. And then her most recent shop update, I got this one, which is called Granny's Tea Dress. 4 ply 75/25. Superwash merino and nylon. I don't know. I never buy yarn without intention usually, but it was really, really pretty. I'm gonna be honest, this was a consolation prize. I really want this colorway she does called Cactus Flower. Taylor, if you were watching this, make more Cactus Flower, please. I really wanted Cactus Flower, which sold out like immediately. Her previous shop update is when I got the Gotta Lava Moana Loa, and I was really upset about that actually. It was my fault. I put everything in the cart and I realized I did not have my card with me, and I went into the kitchen to get my wallet, and I got distracted by kids, and I came back like 15 minutes later and like everything had sold, which is awesome for her. Good job. But really sad for me. So I was really hoping this last shop update she did that I could grab it, but she didn't have it this time around. But she did have Granny's Tea Dress, which I also really, really love. I was thinking originally that I was going to make myself a pair of socks with it, but looking at it in person, I don't know. I feel like socks would be doing it an injustice. Maybe I want to use it for like a really cute springy shawl or something. I definitely want to keep it for me. I really, really want to keep it for me. I got this at my local yarn store. Guys, no joke. I live across the street from my local yarn store. I live across the street from one. It's called Knit Nirvana. It's here in Forest Park. I can walk to my local yarn store in less than 2 minutes. I can't go. Like I would be bankrupt. We would be living on the streets if I went there on a regular basis. It's like the hardest thing that I've ever had to do is avoid a yarn store on purpose. Anyway, I got this. It's Madeline Tosh, because of course it is. I think it's called their ASAP base. This is the Cosmic Wonder Dust. This is most likely going to become a chunky cowl, I think, as a Christmas present for somebody. She who will not be named, because she might actually watch this podcast eventually if I ever put it online. So surprise, if you like it, it might be yours. Haha. So the last thing that I wanted to show you guys before I end with my adventures in yarn dyeing is the other colors that I made that actually worked and that I'm really excited about, and I have no idea what to do with, and I'm hoping that somebody watches this podcast and is struck by some sort of divine inspiration on what I could use these for, because I think they're really pretty. I'm like super duper proud of myself about them, but I'm kind of like at a loss. I'm just overwhelmed by options and choices and the scary amount of patterns that are in my pattern queue. I'm crippled by indecision, guys. Starting at the beginning. I mean this one, which is gray, obviously. Obviously it's gray. It's gray with like, it's like light gray with these darker gray and bluish gray streaks and speckles. And I'm calling it Looks Like Rain because, again, I'm obsessed with rain and storms because clouds are gray and gray things make me happy. This might be my favorite one. It's just so pretty. Sorry, it's a little sloppy. My daughter's been playing with these. She once heard me refer to my yarn as my babies, and ever since then she's almost 4. She treats them like little baby dolls, and she like carries them around and she rocks them, and she like, whenever I wanted to set them down, I'm like, okay, the babies need a nap. It's my life as a parent. So this is my next favorite. I'm not typically a bright color person for myself, but I'm super proud of this one. It's just all the pretty bright speckles. I'm calling this one Lady Glitter Sparkle. Yes, after Zooey Deschanel's character in Trolls. 1, because I love Zooey Deschanel. 2, because I've seen Trolls approximately 7 million times at this point. And 3, because if you've watched Trolls and you're familiar with Lady Glitter Sparkle, you'll know that she has super multicolored fake troll hair, and I don't know, it came out and I was just like, it just struck me as an appropriate name. This one's my daughter's favorite. It didn't come out as punchy as I was hoping it would. It's a little bit more pastel than I initially would have hoped for. That being said, I still love it. I still like the way it came out. It's kind of like a happy accident. But I think maybe next time I dye it, if I dye it again, I might try and concentrate the dyes just a little bit more. Because there's still a decent amount of like muted tones and even a little bit of white still in it. But it's just pretty pinks and purples and turquoises. And I'm gonna call this one Unicorns Exist, because it reminds me of the unicorn frappuccino that Starbucks had that everyone was obsessed with that I never tried. And then the last 2 that I have here are just like some semi-solids with speckles, with darker speckles. This one, actually, when I dyed this one, I used a lot more pink than I should have. I was initially hoping for it to be a lot more blush, a lot more like that Madeline Tosh color, and it came out much more bubblegum, which is fine. It's still pretty. And I did these like black speckles just like on one little corner. So I think I'm gonna call it I Stepped in Gum, because it just kind of reminds me of like dirty bubble gum that you find out on the sidewalk somewhere. And then this one, I am going to call Ice Queen, mainly because of the gray. The gray and teal reminds me of Elsa. There's like, you can see a little bit in there. There's some like teal speckles and some darker gray streaks. This one was inspired by a friend of mine, Sam, whose favorite colors are like this tealish aqua and gray. And so she asked me to make a tealy gray one. And this is what came out. I really, really, really like it. Again, probably could be concentrating my dye a little bit more. I feel like my colors are probably a little bit more pastel than I would have initially anticipated. But still very pretty nonetheless. I feel like I've got a lot to learn for dyeing in general, but it's really, really, really fun and really addicting, and I'm gonna probably be doing it a lot more still. But I really want to learn how to brioche, and I love all like the crazy funky color combinations that people come up with when they brioche. I don't know that I'm that good at putting colors together, but we'll find out. So if any of these colors screamed at you for a specific pattern that you think would look good with them, let me know, because I really want to use them. But I really just don't know. I don't know what to use them for. I really want to do a Love You Baby shawl. Originally, I was thinking I could convince my sister to go up to the store. She probably lives like maybe 2 hours away from it, where it's at, New Jersey, and get me some like hedgehog or something from the store itself, so I could do the actual knit along. But that's not going to happen, at least not with enough time to get the yarn and participate in the knit along. So I might just get the pattern and try it myself with maybe some of the stuff that I dyed. Or, I don't know, there's so many pretty brioche shawls and projects out there. I don't know if I should start with this shawl if I'm learning how to brioche. If you're doing any brioche projects and you think one of those would look really good, let me know, because I could really use some good inspiration. Well, I think that's it for my first podcast. This is probably going to be way longer than I thought it would be. I'm hoping to do a new episode, maybe like twice a month. This is a really ambitious goal for me because we are heading up on prime wedding season here in Chicago, which kind of is like mid to late August through like November. So twice a month in the coming months is probably not going to happen, but I'd like to really continue this. I had a lot of fun recording and talking to you guys, even though right now I'm just talking to a camera, but I hope you guys are out there watching. We're actually going on vacation next week. My husband's family has a cabin on a lake in the north woods of Wisconsin. So we're gonna be there going back up for a couple days just before like our real crazy busy season finally takes off and we have like no free time anymore. So I will be bringing lots of knitting projects up there with me, and I'll probably take a little bit of footage and some photos and stuff of what we do up there, because basically it's just a time where everyone else can chase my kids around and play with my kids, and I actually get some free hands to get knitting done that's not just like the hour before I go to bed. If you guys like what you saw today, please, please, please give me a like and a subscribe, so that way it gives me encouragement to keep going. I would love to hear from you guys in the comments section. I'd love to hear your pattern recommendations. I'd love to hear, especially for first-time briochers. So if you know of something that would be really easy and simple to try for my first time, please let me know. I really hope that I might be able to start a brioche pattern in the next couple weeks. But yeah, I think that's really it for this podcast. I hope you guys really enjoyed watching, and I hope you join me next time, and I'm really, really, really excited to be doing this.